I'm Nick Axline, and today I am speaking to Matt Slacks and Logan Garcia, who are avid video game enthusiastos. But before we get too far, do both of you want to tell a bit about yourselves and what your favorite kind of games are?
Alright, I'll start. I'm Matt, by the way. I've been playing video games for quite a while, I guess. I started with the N64 back in like 90-something. Zelda was the first game, and I guess my favorite game type would be RPGs or like adventure style type of games.
Logan Garcia. I'm also a game enthusiasto. I think I started with Super Nintendo. I'm gonna have to say somewhere between Sonic the Hedgehog and Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and then moved mainly for PlayStation.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Schism.
Yeah.
The line in the sand has been drawn.
And then switched over there. Now, I'd have to say my favorite games type would be MOBA or RTS in general. Mainly PC gamer, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on, what the heck is MOBA?
Massive online battle arena. MOBA. It's based. It originally came out of. Well, it was made popular by the game Dota, which was a Warcraft 3 custom map, and it became massive. And then I think 6 or 8 developers from that broke off of making that, and then made a bunch of different games. And now MOBA's a serious thing.
Okay.
With like League of Legends and like Heroes of New Earth.
All right. Well, I'll just say I'm Nick Axline. My favorite video games of all time is probably Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and I'm a big enthusiast of Nintendo in general. Well, the old Nintendo. Maybe not the new Nintendo.
That's a very fair distinction.
Go GameCube.
GameCube was the best system. What? I'm not joking.
No, I do agree in a lot of aspects.
He agrees in a lot of aspects, and I would like to get into that at some point. But not right now. Okay, so to start off, I just want to say that in this interview, I would like to focus on video games and identity and what video games say about not only our identities in the online world or a computer avatar, but also our real life identities. And so to start off, I'm going to ask, what do you think about linear games versus sandbox games, and why sandbox games have become so popular?
All right. I guess both have their advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
Sandbox allows you to be a little more creative about how you go about playing the game. It creates more of a custom experience, so it feels a little more... It feels more like your game rather than just an experience that you're experiencing. Whereas linear style is, I feel, are usually more story-driven, and you're not exactly customizing it in any kind of way for yourself, but you're it's more like a book in that you're reading it and you're kind of seeing it through someone else's eyes.
Right.
That's kind of the distinction I like to make between the two.
So sandbox games are more realistic in the sense that you're making your own experiences. You choose your own experiences, but in a linear game, you're forced into a certain set of experiences.
No, yeah. And I guess realistic is not a term I exactly put on it.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. It's more you get to choose about what path you take. There typically is there's still a linear section through the game usually, but when you get to that, or if you ever get to that, is kind of up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to agree with pretty much all of that. Like, yeah, linear games are a lot like novels in the sense of you have this giant pre-created story that you're moving through. Sandbox games are like the Goosebump books that you used to be able to flip through and it'd be like, go to page 62 if you want to jump into the attic. Okay.
Yeah.
Except it's way more interactive. I like to compare linear games to original Plumber Man or Mario with potential Donkey Kong throwing down barrels, or that's linear. Like you go from point A to point B, and there's stuff going on, and there's a storyline. Whereas a sandbox game is more like original Pong against like an AI, in the sense of there's a lot more interactions going on. You do have to create all of these different styles, and you don't necessarily know or have to do anything, but you still have a goal in mind. In particular, don't die.
Yeah.
In particular.
I mean, it's interesting too that as video games become more advanced, they're letting the gamer be able to control their experiences a lot more. I mean, you think back to like Nintendo was all 2D, and maybe you had like an above view, with Link walking around or something. But
oh yeah, well, definitely with the onset of online multiplayer games. I mean, especially with games like Call of Duty, and now especially Halo, with being able to customize a Spartan. That is your identity via online, and that just makes you feel like you are the Spartan. You're going into battle.
I mean, on The Sims, you can make them piss themselves.
Yeah, Sims is pretty. I think I'd have to say it was like in the 2000s, or at least that's when EA Sports started making things where you can make your own characters and the whatnot for like Madden, NFL, so on and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of carried over to like first-person shooters, and they were like, this is genius. Instead of customizing your own basketball player's sneakers, you should be able to customize your battle armor or your entire weapon sets, which were Mega Man. One of the Mega Man was one of the first ones to customize weapon sets, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's become much more popular, and that's definitely where a lot of gaming has moved to. And Sandbox is taking that to the next level, where you customize everything. And then you have like games like Minecraft, and there's a game on PS3 that was released about a year ago where it just generates an entire world.
Well, we'll get into Minecraft.
Oh dear.
Okay, what do you think of games that let you decide between what do you think of the difference between first and third person games, and if that makes a difference in your experience?
You want to start off on this one?
Yeah, sure. Example would be Doom 3. And in particular, what is his name? There's a Japanese director, and he's notoriously known for making horrors. And it's normally from a very feminine male character. And most of his games, you take pictures of those creatures to get rid of them.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. He's really big for horror style. And he's not like the Silent Hill, like bloody monster, like... It's more like just the style where you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And you're kind of known like this weaker character. And when you're first person in that, it is terrifying. Like, I was playing Doom 3 at one point in time. In Doom 3, you can only go between your gun and your flashlight. I had my flashlight out this time. I was walking, doing my thing. I know someone's about to jump behind this corner. I'm walking up to this ledge. I see a little dead zombie out on this ledge, and I'm like, oh, that's just a trick. I'm going to have something up on this corner. No problem. Whip out my gun, coming along the ledge. I get close enough to where something should come around the corner. Nothing. No big deal. I switch to my light, and the creature falls. Nothing offensive. I freak out. I'm shooting everything. But like that first person view is definitely much more terrifying compared to like the Gears of War outside view, where it's more like I need to be able to see what's going on around me. I need to be able to analyze what's going on around me. You're being much more...
That's true, actually.
Like conceptually objective versus using that emotional sense to determine your output.
mythology, in a mythic sense, I'll say, is that I was reading recently where Apollo and Dionysus, Apollo has his arrows, and he's also the god of logic, and he stands at a distance to analyze things, where Dionysus is very in your face, he's personal, he's emotional. And I guess, in a certain sense, the further you get away from the character, the more rational you become about the whole entire experience.
An example of that would be RTS, real-time strategies, StarCraft. You are analyzing so much. So much.
Ridiculous amount.
If you were first person as a Zergling,
Yeah, you're done.
that's all you would see. You'd be freaking out.
And this kind of goes back to like the making it a more custom experience too, and how you're experiencing it rather than the character experiencing it. Third person, like Gears of War, is a really good example of that, and that you're watching the story unfold, and yeah, again, it's more like a book in that way. Whereas with games like Zelda isn't a great example because you're third person and it's a silent protagonist, but Nintendo does that on purpose so you can kind of project yourself onto the character.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm exactly like Link. We have so much in common.
Yeah.
But
I also wear tights.
I also wear tights.
Wait, you guys do that too?
Well, yeah.
But then Halo, I think, is a better example in that not only are you first person, so you feel like you're holding the gun while you're progressing through the campaign, but it's a silent protagonist for the most part.
Right.
The chief has his moments of smart little quips and badassery.
The chief.
But for the most part, like you're able to kind of put yourself onto a blank canvas and be the hero.
Right.
Which a lot of people really, really enjoy because they want to be the hero. You don't often get the opportunity to be the hero in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And
Plus one.
Plus one. And it's a satisfying feeling to think that like, no, Master Chief didn't kill all those aliens. I killed all those aliens.
That was you. When you stop for the night, when you're playing late at night, you're sweating, you're getting tired, you turn the system off after you saved, that universe, it's in peril.
It's in
You're sleeping.
Like, I had to take a break for a little bit, guys. I'll be back to save you later.
Pretty intense night.
This is kind of the same for a book, for example. I mean, you stop for a while, like everyone. It's not really bad.
I normally don't get hot and sweaty after reading a book.
Oh, I do.
Some pretty intense.
Yeah, it's intense.
Intense literature.
I know. I mean, whenever I'm reading Twilight, oh my god.
I'm trying to keep this, PG. So I have a bunch of funny jokes in my mind right now, which I'm not going to say.
Fair enough.
Next question.
The next question. Okay. I guess one thing I didn't write down, but I think it's interesting, is how in video games, when you accomplish something, you get experience, or you'll improve a certain asset, or plus one female encounter or something.
No, yeah.
Your skills will continue to go up. People don't have that in real life. And it makes me wonder if that's why people like to play video games, is because it gives them a certain sense of accomplishment. I don't have that in real life. I don't know if I'm improving at all. I could just be going backwards. Who knows?
I've heard the idea bandied around too that like someday we're gonna have achievements. I mean, or like
in real life,
like with PlayStation.
Man, that's a good idea for
trophies. For Obama.
We're
all winners.
You paid your taxes quite well. Achievement.
Yeah.
Achievement.
They actually do kind of like in the tax system. Like, you're married. Achievement unlocked.
But like,
tax system just got way better.
I guess a real world example of that would be, I believe it's a Nissan Leaf, the car.
Yeah.
The car has a virtual tree right where it gets right by your fuel gauge, and it's supposed to be a very fuel efficient and very eco-friendly car. And as you drive around, the tree grows, and so it's as you drive around, you are improving, or you're helping improve air quality by driving a more eco-friendly vehicle. And so the tree is growing, and it's rewarding you. You're doing a good thing. You're helping the tree
It's
grow.
all about incentives.
Yeah,
That's
and it's such a silly little thing. It's a digital tree built into your dashboard. But at the same time, it's satisfying. I mean, this kind of goes to a zombie land type of mentality, like enjoy the little things. Achievements are the little things in life.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that completely. I'm trying to think of, let's say, I had one of my literature teachers in high school. He had this wonderful concept that in life, everybody's just trying to slay a dragon, or they at least really want to slay dragons.
Hero's Journey.
Kind of like basically anything like that sense.
Joseph Campbell, throwing names out there.
Yeah, so there you go. Good job. You always want to be like slaying that dragon. I think like game achievements is a perfect example of that. But in real life, it's really hard. Like if you wanted to really grow a tree in real life, getting achievement unlocked, that is, there are terms for achievement people that do stuff like that. It's really intense.
I'm growing so many trees in Animal Crossing.
I go on to game to be said later, Minecraft. I grow trees like that. I'm just like, I just killed a skeleton.
Boom! Magic tree.
In Animal Crossing, it's completely, ones and zeros. But I still feel guilty when I chop trees down.
Yeah.
Oh, love it.
Oh God.
Building in that morality, like you shouldn't feel bad.
Yeah.
Because it's a digital tree. It's not a real tree. There is no spoon. But
I have all this binary makes me emotional.
It seems like The Sims, it's way more like real life just for the fact that once you relieve or a meter gets full, you fulfill it and then it goes back and then it slowly builds back up,
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh, yeah.
you never really accomplish anything.
It is kind of true.
It's kind of get old.
God, that's really depressing, though.
everything.
You don't ever really achieve anything in
Well,
life.
it's all whether you judge. It's all your own narrative whether you think you achieved anything, I guess.
Enjoying the little things. Very important.
What have you achieved today, Logan?
I went to salsa dancing. That was pretty exciting. We
Plus
did bachata, which is one of my favorite Latino style dances. That was really exciting.
Are you about to level up?
I feel so. I feel like it. Almost. I'm almost there.
Just one more hour.
One more hour. A couple more outward spins. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Legend. Dairy.
Oh god.
Okay, so
Good
in certain games, you choose between following a good path or an evil path.
Mhm.
I guess what I want to ask is, which one do you do first? Which one do you do second, and why do you choose that order?
I typically go good and then bad.
Safe choice.
Well, because it's kind of interesting with what they do with games, in that there aren't a lot of incentives to be neutral. Being neutral usually means you miss out on things on either side of the spectrum, and so usually the game tries to encourage you to be either a really good person or a really bad person. And why I do good and then bad, I guess I try to play through the way I would play. And then you go through it in the bad way to see how things play out differently.
So you think you're good?
I guess in a really arbitrary video game sense,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, am I a good person in real life? There are my ups and downs. But you kind of like to fantasize in a video game, and you're given that ability really well, and that you're able to look at a situation. I guess Mass Effect is a really good example of that.
Really good
Choosing the
example.
dialogue. I mean, what would I say? You know,
Oh,
I mean,
they don't have the dialogue.
they don't have the dialogue. But like, you look at because they usually give you options. Most games,
Yeah.
if any, don't give you like the open end thing. But you look at the options and you decide what would I say, and then the next time around you'll just say something you would never say.
But
I mean, you're never going to tell your boss to go to hell. in real life.
Then throw a grenade at them.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. You're more likely to be like, yes, sir, and then, turn your shoulder and walk away. Video games give you the ability to see what would play out if you'd walked away or if you threw the grenade. So, but yeah, that's what I usually do, good and then bad. Just because you gotta play bad at one point.
For sample number 2.
Sample number 2.
Yeah, I'd have to say I normally do good than bad. It's because I believe good tends to be more difficult in games, so that is changing. That I noticed, and Infamous is a good example of that, in that they're trying to make it more difficult to be evil. And I prefer to go the harder, the semi-harder difficulty the second time, and then if I make the actual difficulty level harder, then I go evil because it's easier to do.
Right.
And that kind of balances it out, so it's not taking on a way higher jump up. So that's one of the reasons I like doing good. And I always expect I'm going to play both sides. Normally, though, I really enjoy going on Infamous, throwing a couple red grenades around, watching what happens.
Watching what happens.
I think, definitely, Infamous is a big one. Mass Effect is a great example. I love how Mass Effect doesn't celebrate neutrality. If you're neutral, the dialogue is boring. You will not get a lot of characters on your side. A lot of people will really dislike you.
Even the women.
All of them.
Yeah, that's actually very, very true.
You have to stand for something.
Yeah, you have to do something in some way, shape, or form, even if it's insulting somebody or appraising them. You can't just be like, I understand what you're saying.
So video games are telling us that we should
not
float through life.
No, we should not be neutral.
We should never be neutral. It's for you, Switzerland. I guess an example that comes to mind is Skyrim. There is no tangible or quantified way of being good or bad, but you definitely get the sense that there's a good side of the game and there's a bad side of the game. If you're playing through, there are typically 4 factions in these Elder Scroll games. You have what are known as the Fighters Guild, or in Skyrim the Companions. They're very brutish, kind of mercenary for hire type people, but they do good things for people. And then you have Mages College, which, wizards and such, saving the world. But then you have the other side of the spectrum, Dark Brotherhood, which are just a bunch of assassins, and Thieves Guild, which, they just steal things. And, just from hearing that, you can see that there's a divide between the two of them. Dark Brotherhood and Thieves Guild, you're evil, technically. They don't really cast the light that way in the game, and nor do they try and make you feel that way, but you can definitely get the definite feel that you are evil when you're playing that way. But when you're playing as a companion or as a mage in the college, you are a good guy. And even though there's no way to quantify that, you get the feeling that, oh, I'm playing as a bad guy right now, or I'm playing as a good guy right now.
Right.
But it definitely, I guess it's more of a personal thing.
It's kind of more like real life, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of being a jerk right now.
Well, because I guess Mass Effect makes it really black and white, with you're being good or you're being bad. Skyrim kind of takes it and this is all gray area, have fun.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which just makes things interesting.
Actually, Skyrim's the Thieves Guild is a really good example of gray zoning everything. Because have you played through Skyrim? No.
I began it.
Thieves Guild, they're in a really the Thieves Guild is in a really bad situation, just because of hard times. They're just not doing well, and so you go out
again. They're neutral. The gray area is.
Oh no,
they're floating through.
There you go. So you start stealing and doing whatever you need to do, which can be considered bad, but I don't know. I think Skyrim's another good one. I know a lot of people that will purposefully attempt not to destroy things to avoid getting killed by guards, because if you're caught doing something bad, you'll be killed pretty quickly early on in the game. But when people are hitting higher levels, like 40, I know plenty of people will go inside of a Whiterun, one of the first villages you go to. Once they have the Call a Storm ability, they'll summon one of those, grab the dragon staff, and shoot fire everywhere.
That's so terrible. Why would they do that?
just to see what happens.
Mhm.
Like, I can beat the guards
We
now.
can't do this in real life. It makes me wonder if there was no laws. I just want to.
Well, it's kind of that thing. I mean, I think the greatest quote that I can think of is from, I believe, Walter from Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he and his wife have just gotten done having sex in the car.
Oh whoa.
And, like,
Whoa.
Just and just public exposure and just and they're outside of a high school nonetheless, and it's technically illegal. And he's like, she's like, why was that so good? And his response is because it's illegal. And I think that really ties into video games. Like, why do people do evil things in video
Rules
games?
are meant to be broken.
Breaking. But it's that same mentality. I mean, I guess Grand Theft Auto is a good example. In real life, you can't hijack your car, run it off of a cliff, dive out, use a parachute, land, and then Uzi all the cops in front of me. Well, you can.
Clearly do not have my life.
Yeah. I think most of us have experienced that.
To be fair.
And of course, if you're walking into a gun shop and wait, the little stars will go down on your hub system, and then you're fine when you go back.
And then you're fine.
They'll never know.
You just gotta lean against a wall for a while.
Yeah, they'll just not notice you.
Well, I mean, that's how you heal. Right? The worst wounds can be cured by leaning against.
By leaning against a wall.
Final Fantasy teaches us that we sleep, actually.
Yeah. It's like in Pokemon where that woman's like, oh, you look tired, why don't you take a nap?
Why don't you take a nap?
And then it's like on Reddit, where it's like, this is such a creepy woman. I'm really creeped out by this.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on the game about whether or not they quantify whether you're good or bad.
Which is kind of interesting. I know kind of one of the bigger philosophies throughout like the 50s was being not necessarily neutral, but more towards neutral compared to like the Romantic period, which is like chaotic good, referring to like Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Video game roots right there.
Yeah.
It had a system between what chaotic good, lawful good. Let's see. This chaotic neutral exists right now. I don't know if it exists in an original version.
I think chaotic neutral is definitely the most popular these days.
Chaotic neutral is popular now for D&D in version 4 at least, and then you have chaotic evil, lawful evil, just neutral.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's the anti-hero, right? It's a chaotic neutral, basically.
well,
Or maybe that'd even be chaotic good, but I think chaotic neutral is definitely my favorite kind of character.
yeah, I mean, I love it as a character. A good example of a true chaotic neutral character.
Sawyer on Lost.
Sawyer on Lost is a good example. I was actually thinking of what's the burly on Firefly? The more burly guy.
Oh.
Jane.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wanting to say, but yeah, he's
Boom,
chaotic
right
neutral.
there.
If something's going to aid him and him alone, then he'll do it. Not for good, not for evil.
He gets better, though.
He does.
See, it's always like builds up where you're like, you don't like the guy at first. You're like, this guy's a jerk. I really don't care for him. But then you get
He
deeper
gets
into-
better.
Yeah.
He gets
and then
more.
you're like, wait a minute, this guy's awesome.
This guy's awesome.
Every time.
And then
it
they
works
canceled
on
the
me.
series.
Oh,
They
no.
did it.
Sad.
I'm sorry.
Sad.
That great series.
Many tears.
Everyone's just.
Or in the case of Walt on Breaking Bad, he
Mhm.
starts out like Mr. Chips
Mhm.
and turns into some sort of dangerous Robert De Niro character.
Robert De Niro character.
But yeah, I think it's interesting how video games have moved away from being like chaotic neutral. You can be chaotic good and chaotic evil, but there's a lot of movement away from chaotic neutral and being just, I don't want to put my hands into anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you say it chaotically.
Chaotic.
Yeah, chaotic neutral doesn't exist.
I think of like the chaotic neutral character as somebody who can utilize both sides to their advantage. They don't take a side, but
Like Ayn Rand.
Mhm.
Like, what am I thinking? Objectivism?
that's
Yeah, in the sense of what is best for this thing going on right here.
What the
at
hell
all
is that
times.
thing? Man? Seriously.
Of this needs the benefit.
All of it, man. Oh, 500 pounds of it.
But
500
500 pounds.
You're impressive.
But you're winning. You're winning.
You're winning.
It's on my
unlocked.
stats. I have to carry all these Pokeballs somewhere.
But
But what's next?
Well, I guess before we move on, I know this is kind of esoteric, but in the Hindu mythology, they believe in a god called Brahma, who everything is that god tricking himself into believing he's that thing. So in other words, everyone is a god. So Brahma's playing out all the characters across the globe. And in a way, I think when we're playing a video game, we can decide between light and dark. We're kind of doing the same thing. I mean, if you're a god and if you're all-powerful, like we clearly are, we're not going to just want to be good all the time, are we? We're going to want to experience everything there is to experience.
Fair enough. Get the full range.
That is really, I think, what's going on in that situation. Well, in a mythological sort of way.
really quickly, personally, I'd really like to see like a beginner gamer,
Right.
just somebody that doesn't play a lot of video games, to step up to a video game. Because I know between like all of us, we say, okay, I'm going to take the good path, and then I'm going to take the evil path on a video game before we ever even touched it. Like, we've decided this is what we're going to do because we want to see what the dialogue is. It's like we're critically analyzing a book.
Right.
But if, let's say, somebody that didn't understand a lot of video games, let's say they were to just randomly play Infamous, and they might accidentally kill somebody and do something evil, if that will progress them more towards evil. If they tend to do something good, if that'll progress them towards good. My guess would be they tend to do evil because it's a lot easier.
Fear leads to... What's the other quote? Yeah.
It's like fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate.
No, it's fear leads to suffering. Where's the suffering come in? Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate. Hate
Leads to
leads to suffering.
God, I wish I could do that voice.
Yeah,
If only.
suffering. Just do your Miss Piggy voice.
Miss Piggy voice.
It's Frank Oz. I know he does both voices.
Oh, really?
Yoda and Miss Piggy.
That is really bizarre.
That's
Kirby. I can't. Kermit.
Kirby, you are.
There you go. Yeah. Kermit.
I'm just imagining like Yoda and Kermit meeting and just being like,
Kermit the Frog.
Sweet being green, right? Yeah.
Rainbow connection. They both live in a swamp, I guess.
That's actually very true. What a bizarre tangent.
anyway,
Do any of you have anything more to add to that?
good and evil concept.
I guess one thing that what you said brought to mind is that every time you play a new video game, it's like you're a child entering the world for the first time and kind of figuring out the rules of the world and stuff like that. And in a sort of a way, when you're a kid, things do seem more like monsters, like ogres actually exist. You know, trees can mean more to you than they're just a tree. And it seems like when you play a video game, you figure out the rules, and ogres can exist, you know? It's like you're transported almost back to your childhood in a certain sort of sense.
I'd say that's true in some lights.
Yeah.
Because I think what kind of ruins it is that, I mean, with
You don't get it.
with gamers like myself and Logan, we've been playing games for so long.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you said before, like we kind of already knew what we were going to do with the game when we
Yeah.
first buy it. You buy a Call of Duty, you don't play the campaign first.
I guess
you
in,
play through
in that case,
multiplayer.
where there's a ton of sequels, you do have an expectation of what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, and you decide early on, I'm going to play good and then evil
Yeah.
first.
It's like,
I think that idea fits more with Logan was saying with new players.
yeah, like when you're a kid too. I remember
Yeah.
playing Zelda for the first time. Like,
Oh yeah.
Grodo, berries,
This is magical.
Tingle the elf.
God. Don't even bring up Tingle.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like completely new games that have changed.
It
Like,
doesn't happen that
What's
much.
going on? I'd say no. I almost want to say Portal, but Flash games have been doing that for a while.
It seems the indie games these days, not the big companies, and they usually put video games out to download on the internet or on consoles, and it seems like those are more innovative these days. And
what is it called? I can't remember. It is you're in a landscape. You can control a character.
Farmville.
And,
You're ridiculous.
It's first person. You can control where you're looking, and you can walk around on this basic landscape. It has a little like grass and the whatnot, shrubbery.
Mm-hmm.
There's a narrator going on throughout this entire story, and
Is that Braid?
I'm not certain.
Isn't Braid where you can go back in time, sort of?
I don't remember.
Braid, it's more interactive though.
Mm-hmm.
This thing, you don't do anything necessarily. You walk forward, you'll walk around, and like different images will start to appear, but you can't really interact with them. It's completely like an audio book, but you get to move around on it.
That's all just very sensory.
Plus a couple like sensory stimulations happening here and there. That's a pretty innovative game style because you don't get to go say, okay, I'm going to take this path and this path. I'm going to train my character. Go, because that doesn't exist. That gameplay style doesn't really have gameplay. But does it count as a game? Yeah, it does. Maybe.
Maybe.
I guess that is very true though with indie games.
Yeah.
I mean, indie games are more innovative now because the video game industry is kind of taking the same turn as the movie industry has.
It's true.
And that,
I like how we were talking the other day where the video game industry is sort of in the 80s sort of phase of blockbusters. With Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, no.
But, you know, like video game companies and movie producers, they're going to want to do things that they know are going to make them money.
Right.
So with
Call of
movies,
Duty.
yeah, like with video games, it's Call of Duty, the big franchises, Halo, Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed now, Gears of War, you know, things like that. Whereas with movies, it's, you know, who's the superhero? We'll make a movie for him, and it'll make us money.
Right.
Or, God forbid, 3D, but you know, like that same concept applies. They want to do something that's going to make them money. They don't want to take chances on something.
We were talking about this the other day with
Yeah,
Nintendo.
that will lose them money. And
Yeah.
so that's why Nintendo has made the same Zelda game with a different story for the past 25 years.
I like when we were talking, if we were the CEOs, or if I was the CEO for Nintendo, because they made the same game over and over and over again. They never really innovate these days. I would say after 3 games that are relatively the same, say Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, after that, then you have to completely change the game, innovate it again, you know, make it...
Did you guys ever play Final Fantasy X2?
I did not.
I have never been a big Final Fantasy player myself.
I played
but-
So Final Fantasy X, it did change it a little bit. It made the lead male character a lot more female, which is becoming more popular in Japan.
Oh, yeah. Of course, it is becoming popular.
It's been popular, I should say. Anyway, X2 was a spin-off that Square Enix made, and it was intended to focus on teenage Japanese girls. That was its target audience. They didn't tell the rest of the world that. So it gets to America, and people think it's a new Final Fantasy game. I want to get it.
It didn't go over very well.
It was horrible. It was drastically bad. Its sales were horrible and everywhere else. But they did completely change it wasn't completely change their style.
Yeah.
But instead of being like you're point A, you're level 5, work to level 99, good luck, big boss at the end. All that kind of existed, but the entire world that you could occupy, you can move around in already. You could already do a lot.
Interesting.
But it was still a pretty linear game. They changed that. They had a lot of lead female characters. I have nothing against that in particular. But I also didn't like a lot of the gameplay.
So was this basically just an attempt to take kind of a male-dominated game, Final Fantasy, and just make it towards
They
girls?
made it towards females, but they messed up a lot on what you can do, how early on you can do it, and the overall gameplay. And because they changed so much in it, it ended up losing them some profit over in America. So
it's interesting to me that games geared towards women tend to be more open-ended. It seems like you start from one spot. And
what study is it? There's a study that shows that bright, open games tend to make tend to be better towards females.
Well, I'm thinking of Animal Crossing specifically right now. This,
Oh, that would fit under the bright and colorful region.
yeah, and it's very open. Like there's goals, but there's no one telling you need to fulfill the goals except for what's his name at the beginning where you have to pay off your house with bells.
No.
What's his name again?
Tom Nook.
Tom Nook. Yep, that's right.
God, I shouldn't remember that. But I don't know. I think the female video game market is really slim right now. Because I mean, the one that immediately comes to mind
Farmville.
is not even Farmville, but like Cooking Mama.
Oh yeah.
Like for the DS, I've never frequented it myself, but I think that's a really weird message to be putting out. Like,
is it for women?
Well, I don't know if it's. I would say it's for women specifically, just because it's a female
Cooking
character.
Mama, not Dada.
Yeah, and again, it's falling under like that bright and colorful category. But it's when you think of it that way, it's an extremely sexist thing to think about because
It's pretty sexist.
like, here's a DS game where you can cook in the virtual world,
Vacuuming Mama.
and then I hope you're ready to make me a sandwich when you're done. Like, there are not that many female games that are out there that are really, like, for a guy, you go to your 8 to 5 job,
Yeah.
you're doing whatever, you're a doctor or a lawyer, or you work at Burger King, what have you.
Right.
But then you come home, and then you're the Dragonborn, you're slaying dragons, you're space commando, and what have you. Women, that option isn't really there. You're either a stay-at-home mom, and you're cooking or taking care of a child.
Bejeweled is actually getting a really high rate in females. So Bejeweled.
I bet Pokemon has a lot of women players compared to other games.
Oh yeah, well it's because the Pokemon are adorable.
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't ever die.
I think there's a pretty good following in Pokemon, but I think it's mainly males.
I would say the majority are men. However, compared to other games, I bet there's more women playing it.
I could agree with that.
Yeah, it seems like that. To me.
I don't know.
That just means that everyone is okay with
But those
enslaving
Pokemon
animals.
Pokemon oddly also seems kind of open-ended in a way. You start out, you get to catch whatever Pokemon you want to. But and then you get to train them. You get to move on and get attacked by hordes of Zubats.
True story.
It happened.
Guys get Charizards and Mewtwo's, and
Mewtwo's.
girls get Mew.
Girls get Mew.
Jigglypuff.
No, well, I guess that's kind of true. They're definitely
Jinx.
seem like Jinx.
It's so racist, actually. It's like,
But no, yeah, like I see your point though. Pokemon definitely has things that can gear towards guys and girls, which I think is one of those
Male
games.
character that you don't get to choose.
You can be a girl.
Really?
these days. Yeah.
Oh, you can now.
Yeah,
I haven't
since
played the recent ones actually. God,
God, what was it? Ruby and Sapphire. You've been able to be a boy
I
or a
stopped
girl.
at Crystal.
Wait, you couldn't on Gold and Silver?
No.
No, you were stuck as a dude. Which whatever.
Still can't decide your race though, right?
No, you are a.
Why would you want that?
You're a white youth.
Are you sure you're not Asian?
Well, they try and
Can't
make.
tell.
You really can't tell, I suppose.
I remember the only American character in Red and Blue was Lieutenant Surge.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
like this Vietnam War veteran.
Yeah. Which that just kind of shows the viewpoint.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
What's the next question?
Okay. I guess it sort of continues off something we were talking about earlier. Why are male heroes becoming more masculine in today's video games?
And I guess that kind of links to what you were talking about with Japan. I mean, it's going more towards like the feminine type male character.
Well, the Japanese games are not as popular as they were either.
No, they've lost a lot of overall,
Mhm.
which might be because American publishers for video games have become huge. Call of Duty.
But why though?
Why?
Well, I guess Call of Duty kind of links into that whole national pride thing more towards the military. Call of Duty is that link for us to be like, yeah, we're American soldiers and we're fighting bad guys. and bad guys are usually fall into one of two categories: unknown parties or Russians.
Terrorists.
Yeah, and terrorists.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or the Nazis.
oh yeah, Nazis too. I mean,
Zombie Nazis.
zombie Nazis.
Can't get more evil than that.
And like that's a very
Let's say explode because of terrorists.
Terrorists, Nazi zombies. That's the next.
The next step. Give them a bottle
next
of vodka
evolution.
and call them Russian. It'll be great.
But like
No.
that mentality is, like soldiers are typically, very masculine people, guns,
Yeah.
grenades strapped to their person. Like they're just very manly men.
But even in Japan, I think American games. I'll take that back. Why are American games, especially with the typical masculine hero who goes out and kills a bunch of sort of faceless enemies, why has that become so popular with the youth these days? Where it seemed when I was a kid, it was more kind of feminine heroes who hopped around on blocks.
Well, that seems fair. I think a big contributor to that would probably be the war. I mean,
I don't think so though.
well, think.
Okay, I'll agree with you that yes, that might play a part, but I don't think it's a huge part of it.
Well,
I'm going to have to say, I think the easiest way to say why it's such a big deal is because of consoles in general. Because I think the world of consoles, especially with Xbox and PS2 hitting the lead market, and GameCube.
Don't forget the
was a good
GameCube.
system. It had better graphics than the PS2 did.
Yeah, it did.
You should see the water effects in Pikmin.
GameCube did use their money though. But moving on.
But anyway. Ever since consoles came out, any average person can get consoles. And this, I mean, especially because PS2, and I guess you could say original PlayStation also, and some of those original consoles, the first generation, and then second, and now PS3, so on and so forth, they've really, really gotten pushed. There's tons of them out there. Before that, the strongest, leading game for anything was computers. Always. Computers are always leading that. And there was a lot of stereotypes with computers, and a lot of them, for any computer games, you had to know a little bit about mods, you had to know what am I thinking? Unreal Tournament. Great game, super masculine game. A lot of the characters are either male or females that look really manly, brutish. They're strapped down, or they're robots that are just man chins hanging out to here, and they're running around just shooting each other. That's what's happening. But I mean, there's tons of Unreal Forever mods coming out, and there's a gaming community existed then. But because of console games, more and more people are okay with getting them. Now with Wii bowling being popular, it's really popular for Wiis to be in retirement homes. Compare 16 men getting together to play Unreal Tournament in somebody's house at a local area networking compared to Wii bowling at a retirement home. 16 elderly people, maybe your grandmother, getting together to go like this. I think where people can play games completely changed the universe for video games, in the sense of, from a publishing stance, you can mass produce games like you've been mass producing movies or books like Twilight, these pulp fictions, and just mass produce them to a lot of people. And because those people they can buy it and use it because they have the consoles now, it just makes sense to do something that's really stereotypical, just like in movies.
Yeah.
That actually seems fair.
For me, though, it's curious for me why that's popular. I can understand, yes, that it is popular, but why is it? And that I'm not sure about.
I guess it could be arguable.
Is it just kids that they want to project themselves in a made-up universe as super masculine men who can go out and just be a badass,
Well, for one, what is it? The average game buying age is 16 to 30?
That's
male.
I can see that.
So you are hitting a point in time where you're supposed to be filling into your stereotype roles.
Right.
I mean, you're not supposed to be I'm androgynous and I play lots
Yeah.
of video games.
It's a very archetypal male. Ugh.
I guess the way you can think about it, at least for males, I guess, is think about it in a Fight Club-esque sense.
That's interesting, actually.
Because
Example.
in the real world, you're
It's like also
you're
like
running
Breaking
around.
Bad.
Yeah, like you're doing your 8 to 5 job.
Yeah.
You're fixing things at home. You're bringing home the bacon. Whatever. You're being normal. You're doing your day-to-day duties. But then, I'll just use Halo or Call of Duty as the example. That is your Fight Club. That is where you go to unleash your inner beast.
You don't mean that men don't want to play as Kirby in the Magical Yarn Adventure.
See, that isn't nearly as gratifying. Because there's a big difference between floating through the clouds as Kirby
A little pink zit.
and whipping out your AK-47 as a United States soldier and just mowing down bad guys. I mean,
Right.
that is your outlet. It allows you to just go crazy for a bit.
Yeah.
In a very legal way. I mean, like, if you did that real action as a soldier, kind of expected of you. But if you're not a soldier, then you go to prison.
Right.
So that just is a way for people.
Slightly frowned upon action
Slightly
there.
frowned upon. And that's just people's way of being able to unleash
Right.
that thing. Because I do honestly think we have that primal,
Yeah.
like, just as males, we have that primal instinct to just, like, beat things
No,
occasionally.
I agree with that.
And it's been kind of,
We've been feminized in the real world,
yeah,
so
it's been needed out of us.
being masculinized in the
Mhm.
made-up world. It's like,
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way to look at it, why it's so popular. Because as the modern world gets more modern,
right.
violence is well, I guess I can't say on the whole violence is happening less and less,
That's true, though.
but I guess war isn't nearly as rampant as it has been
For most of the world.
for most of the world.
Our side of the world.
And like I said,
Global North.
yeah, like
It's
the modern world.
Right.
And so as that progression's happening, violence is becoming less and less necessary, and so it's making so it's less and less available, if
Right.
you will. Like a person in Africa, they're not going to look at Call of Duty and be like,
Yeah.
why do I want to do that?
They can get their kicks in the real world.
Yeah, they have to deal with threats on a day-to-day basis, whether or
Right.
not they be of a disease-related basis or a guy with a gun.
Yeah.
I mean, they get their Call of Duty in real life, whereas we don't. So we
Yeah.
tend to do that so we can.
It seems like men are desiring real life experience
Mhm.
where nothing in our lives these days really make our boil or our hearts beat, or we don't ever have that need to survive. And
Mhm.
it's, sometimes you kind of fantasize about being in something like that. You're like, what would I do if, something terrible happened and I
Well,
had
it's
to-
like that idea about wouldn't it be awesome if there was a zombie apocalypse?
Yeah, no, it's the same exact idea. It's
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you imagine yourself in that
it
situation.
would be terrible.
Oh
It'd
yeah,
be so terrible. Like, you kind of romanticize it, but
Yeah, it'd be awful to be in that situation. Are you kidding me?
which is really bizarre when you think about it. That we romanticize zombie apocalypses.
that's kind of a disgusting part of our culture when you think about it.
Yeah, because
We have a literal undead part of our culture. There's this disgusting undercurrent of rot and decay.
like Nazi zombies. I mean, you put yourself in that situation in the video game, and you're like, yeah, I'm surviving. I've survived for X number of rounds, and I could last forever
Yeah, I
in a
know.
real zombie.
And always in those fantasies, you're always the one alive. You're never the zombie. You're not the. In all likelihood, you would be one of the dead masses out there.
Statistically,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you are always the survivor who's holed up in his house or something with a shotgun. You're not the zombie outside the door begging to eat the flesh of.
Also, kind of another thing that you point out with Nazi zombies
Mhm.
is that also points out a lot of media game, high media games are super masculine.
Yeah.
Great example. Why aren't you getting a gun and leaving this zombie-infected place and fighting through to go help your family?
Mm-hmm.
Or go find your friends?
Yeah, it's true.
Why aren't you like, hey, comrades, where are they?
Yeah, you're simply in it to murder.
Just you want to kill so many things until you get that score real high, or you find a great glitch somewhere.
Always about killing in those games. It's interesting.
And I guess that kind of links to like our need to feel special. I mean, which has really been evolving, I guess, and at least from what I can tell, American culture.
Well, it seems to me that would be a result of parents having fewer and fewer children, and so those children become more like they feel special. Whether there's 20 kids, you don't feel that special about yourself. You know?
Well, I mean, they're trying to make everyone feel special now.
Yeah, it's true.
Because when I was younger, I was part of soccer with the YMCA, and if your team did well, you got a trophy. Like, hell yeah, I have a trophy. I'm cool.
+1.
I'm good at soccer.
Achievement unlocked.
Nowadays, everyone gets a trophy or everyone gets a medal. Like, you participated. You didn't touch the ball once, but you participated. You know, and that same mentality goes, towards making everyone feel special in video games.
Right.
You are the survivor in the zombie apocalypse. You are the one who will save the day.
You are the hero.
Yeah, and that's what all video games basically do.
Yeah.
I mean, you've never seen a video game that's like, well, you're the sidekick. Have fun helping the hero do what he does.
Interesting, actually.
Which, now that I think about it, that'd be an interesting mental study.
Yeah.
If people would play a game where you're the sidekick.
Necessarily. It'd be kind
of I think I bet if you introduce it as an indie game on Steam and introduce it with a hat for TF2.
There's a hat for TF2.
The sidekick parrot.
You always play as Batman. You never really play as Robin.
You don't play as Robin.
Unless it's Teen Titans, because then you can be the hero.
Because, Robin is the main. Yeah, I wouldn't say Minecraft would be a counterexample because you aren't technically a hero, but you're kind of a god, so you still are the main character.
Let's take a brief break at the hour mark.
All right.